Welcome to EPG Pathshala. Our today's topic is stored procedures in MySQL. In today's topic, you will be able to learn stored procedures in MySQL, why stored procedures, syntax and structure of stored procedures, implementation of stored procedure with different examples, functions, and implementation of functions with example. So, now let us start with stored procedures in MySQL. A stored procedure or a function is a named PL/SQL block which resides in database engine. They are the logically grouped set of SQL and PL/SQL statements. I would rather say like it is defining my own API which will help me to reuse the code again and again. The user can directly call with just the name of the procedure and by passing the parameters. Like the procedures can also be called by any outside applications like Java, like PHP, etc. Procedures can also be invoked with the help of other procedure, trigger, or with a call subroutine or from the basic command prompt. An interesting thing to note is the open source databases did not have the support of any of these database objects like stored procedures, functions or triggers when they were initially launched. It was only after MySQL 5.0 the support for stored procedures, functions or triggers was added to enhance reusability. So, why actually do we need the stored procedures? Stored procedures provide us with different advantages, the first one being security. The stored procedure provide one upper layer above your tables, that is the TPA can give access to the procedures, but not giving access to the underlying tables. Hence, the user can call the procedure by just giving the procedure name and passing the parameters, but the user does not have actual access to the underlying tables, hence the tables remain secured. The second advantage being the reusability. As we already saw, the procedure written for one task can be reused by multiple users, multiple developers again and again. The third point being the database traffic. Instead of passing the entire script of SQL to the compiler, the user just passes the name of the procedure and the parameters, which eventually reduces database traffic. And the fourth point being the caching, the important advantage of SQL being the caching. Once I am calling a stored procedure, once I have written a stored procedure and when I compile, MySQL reserves the copy of that compilation into its buffer. It keeps the copy into the cache. So, next time when I am compiling, if it does not detect any change, it will not recompile and will give the user the copy from the buffer. Now, apart from these advantages, there are also a few limitations of stored procedure. The few limitations of stored procedure are not each and every one can write a stored procedure. Expert skill set is required to build logic to write program of stored procedure. Another limitation being that if a user is calling too many procedures, if the developer is writing many procedures, it will reduce, in turn it will lower the memory. If the procedure is involving too much of calculations, too much of calling, too much of iterations, again your CPU consumption, again your memory consumption is higher. But very few limitations and we have many advantages of using a stored procedure. So, now we actually see there are two types of stored procedures, static and dynamic. The static stored procedure being you are not passing any parameter, we are just calling the procedure and returning fetching the value from the procedure. The dynamic stored procedure being that depending on the parameter passed by the user, the behavior or the action of my procedure changes. That is what is the dynamic procedure. The two types of procedure being static and dynamic. Now, in order to make my procedure dynamic, MySQL provides me with 3 types of parameters. The 3 different types of parameters used into the stored procedure are in, out and in out. We will talk first about in parameter. In parameter is the default parameter available with the stored procedure. In parameter is used to accept the value from the user. Out parameter being to return the value. We assume that out parameter by default has got the null value, and whatever processing is done within the procedure, I am passing some variable and returning the value with the help of in out parameter. The third parameter being in out. In out will help you to accept the variable, accept the parameter as well as return the parameter. That is, the same variable can behave, can accept the value as well as can return the value. We will see each parameter, that is example of each type of parameter into detail with implementation. So, let us have first of all the structure of the stored procedure. Stored procedure mainly consists of 2 parts, declarative part and executable part. Declarative part will consist of the declaration of constants, variables, cursors, etc. And executable part in turn will have the execution body, that is the action which procedure is expected to take. Let us have a look at the syntax for the stored procedure. The syntax goes like: create procedure, procedure name, in bracket the parameters, that is the parameter are in, out or in out. The type of the parameter has to be any valid MySQL data type, and the routine body is any valid SQL routine statements. The characteristics which are specified are all the optional characteristics which can be specified when declaring stored procedure, that is you are using language as a SQL or you do not want to use SQL, no SQL, etc. So, let us actually start with the first example of a stored procedure, a simple example to fetch data from employee table. But here the first thing, if you observe, is we are using MySQL Workbench localhost version 5.6. If you are not able to view this navigation bar, the navigator, you can click on the upper right corner and you will be able to view the navigator. Here we assume that we have created a table called employee, which has got 3 fields: employee ID, name and salary. In the left hand corner you are able to view stored procedure, and when you right click you get create stored procedure. Clicking on create stored procedure will open the stored procedure editor. Here I am creating the stored procedure of get salary. I am not passing, we are not passing any parameters over here, we will directly fetch the salary from the employee table. So, we will just say select name comma salary from employee, semicolon is our end of the statement. And when you click on apply, here if you observe, it changes the delimiter to $. Now, why there is a need to change the delimiter to $? Because we want to pass the entire script to the SQL as it is. Now, if SQL encounters a semicolon in between, SQL considers it as an end of statement. So, to change that end of statement, we change the delimiter temporarily to $, and again in the end of, if you observe, we again make the delimiter to semicolon. So, once you click on apply, it will give the procedure to the compiler, it will give you the message executed SQL statements successfully, and now we go to our SQL prompt, and from after going there I call the procedure here with the help of call statement, call get salary, and as you can see the name and salary are displayed. So, after fetching, once you fetch the name and the salary from the employee table, here we used the simple routine call get salary. Here we have not used any parameter, neither in nor out anything, making use of in parameter. Now, but again creating on stored procedure, and when you start writing, Observe that as soon as you are writing here, by default the compiler has added the delimiters for you. Compiler is providing you with the begin and end block. So, we are just changing the name of the procedure, adding the parameters. So, now I am giving the name of the procedure as raise salary. I am by default my parameter is in parameter, employee number and amount, two variables I am passing. Here I will pass the employee ID, and for that employee ID I will increase the salary, that is whatever amount the user has passed, we will increase the salary to that much amount. So, I am using a DML statement, update table name, set salary equal to salary plus amount, where employee ID is equal to the employee number which is passed. Here for your understanding, I have written a DML statement into 3 different lines. Just to explain, we will need to write it in a single line, or we can provide the separator in between. So, once we have written the update statement, now before here if you observe, the salary for Jai is 5,400, and when we are saying call raise salary 2, 200, I am increasing the salary by 200. Okay. So, before I execute, I need to change the single line statement, update employee, set salary is equal to salary plus amount. After applying, here we are calling call raise salary 2, 200. So, I want to increase the salary of employee number 2 plus 200. So, after calling the subroutine, you will get the message over here, 1 row is affected, the salary for employee number 2 has been increased plus 200, and now I write the select star from employee statement and I view the salary which has updated. So, you can see the updated salary of Jai has updated plus 200, right. So, this was the simple in parameter wherein I have accepted the values and we are fetching the result. Now, we shall have a look at out parameter wherein I will be giving the value as input, and here we will just pass the employee ID and we will return the name from the table. So, I am giving the name as fetch name. So, I will say create procedure fetch name, I will pass employee number which will just return the name of the employee passed. So, here we say employee number we have passed, but employee number by default is the in parameter. Here we are looking at the example of out parameter. So, here we have declared out variable and I have given the variable name as vname. I will declare one more variable to hold this variable. So, I say select name into vname, I need to fetch the name into the variable which I am giving as out from employee, where employee ID is equal to the employee number which is passed. Again, after executing, after applying the changes, it gives to the compiler after applying delimiter and all, and once you click on apply, your procedure is executed successfully. And when we go on to the SQL prompt and execute the statement as call fetch name, but even before giving fetch name, now here we are fetching the name, but I am having the out parameter. So, where will I contain the out parameter into? In order to have a variable contain the value, I should make use of @ @ will help you to use the variable along with that value. So, here I have given call fetch name 1, @ vname. The upper statement has not ended. So, we need to give the semicolon there and only then you can execute. Now, when I say call fetch name, so it gives you 1 rows affected, and to view I will have to write select of vname. So, I will say select @ of vname and it will display me the name of employee number 1, that is the name of employee 1, Raj, is displayed over here. So, here we saw the example of in parameter, we saw the example of out parameter. In parameter just accepted the values, out parameter helped you to return back the values. But we have a third type of variable which can behave as in as well as out. So, let us have an example where we will see the behavior of in as well as out. So, for the in out parameter, we are taking a simple example to calculate a square of a number using in out parameter. Here we also see that how you can write a procedure on the command prompt itself. I am not going to the editor, I am just writing here on the command prompt, create procedure name, square. I have declared the type of the variable as in out and the name of my variable is p, the return type is integer. Now, here if you observe, I am writing in a single line and I am saying set p is equal to p into p, and that is it, semicolon, my procedure ends over here, my single line procedure. Now, in order to execute this, here you can see 0 rows affected, it has said it is not detecting the definition. Now, I have created the procedure, I want to call the procedure. So, here I am passing a number with procedure name square, but before passing, if you observe here, I have written set @number equal to 10. We just saw that whenever I want to make use of variable on the command prompt itself, I will have to make use of @. @ will maintain your value as long as if you lose the session, your variable needs to be reinitialized. So, here we are calling, I have given set number equal to 10. Now, when I am calling the procedure, I am passing that number's value. So, when you pass call square @number, so it has returned me 100. So, when I am saying select @number, it is giving me 100. So, this was the example of using in out, but for the in out parameter we wrote on the command prompt itself, and we saw a simple example of calculating square. But you might also be thinking that we have seen all the examples with the table employee, that is in parameter we took with table employee, out parameter we took with table employee. So, we should take in out parameter also with table employee. So, let us have one more example of in out with the tables. So, we will start, and here we will create a procedure again raise salary, but there here if you observe, I am creating a procedure called raise salary. If you remember, we also previously created raise salary, but that was just with the in parameter. Here I am making the amount variable, it is the same amount we had passed as in, but here I am making the amount variable behave as in as well as out. So, what we are doing over here, we are accepting the employee number from the user, we are accepting the amount from the user, and we are also returning the amount to the user. So, in order to do that, we have declared two variables v amount and v salary. The two parameters which are passed are employee number and amount. After declaring two variables, my select statement fetches salary into the variable called v salary for the employee number which is passed. My v amount, that is I am adding salary plus amount, v salary which I have fetched from the table. So, v salary plus amount is set into v amount. I am updating the table with that salary, update employee, set salary is equal to salary plus v amount, where the employee number which is passed, and now I want to return the updated amount to the out parameter. So, I am saying set amount is equal to v amount. This is how we are playing with the tables as well with in out parameter. And if you observe, I had told you that when you try to recompile, if MySQL will not detect any changes, it will give you the message no changes detected. So, here it has not detected any changes in recompilation. Now, I am giving V amount, I need to pass first of all when I am calling the procedure. So, here I am saying select star from EMP, let us see what is the amount. It is 5300 for employee Raj. Now, when you call raise salary, you will get the amount into V amount, and when you say select at amount, it is 5400, the amount is updated plus 100. So, here we also saw in out example along with the tables. Now, there are multiple things we can do with the procedures. Out variables, procedure can return multiple parameters, that is I can give out parameter multiple times, I can separate it from comma, and procedure has the facility to return multiple parameters. So, I can have multiple in parameters, I can have multiple out parameters. Apart from parameters in stored procedure, like you are writing your any programming block, this programming block also can make use of loops, can make use of cursors, can be used within the triggers. So, the loops which stored procedures support are do while loop, repeat until loop, and the basic loop and loop. So, we will see a simple example. First of all, let us see the three syntax of while and do while. The syntax of while goes like while, expressions, do, the statements, and end while. The syntax of repeat goes statements until the expression and end repeat. So, as the syntax itself suggests, while will be executed at least, while will check the condition before, and repeat will be executed at least once, and then the condition will be checked. We also have two statements, leave and iterate, which are used in for loop. With the help of leave statement, it is something like exit from the loop, you can leave the loop, and iterate will keep on iterating the loop. So, those statements are used with for loop, and let us have one simple example of for loop. So, here I am creating a stored procedure, the name I have given as test loop, and in the test loop we will be accepting a parameter or a string from the user. You can also create it in a static loop. Here we are fetching the numbers of 1 to 10 and building a string of even numbers. So, the name of my procedure being test loop. Here if you observe, I have declared a variable called counter, I have declared a variable called string. Counter is an integer type, string has varchar. Counter I have initialized to 1, string is as of now blank. I am also making use of loop label here, and interesting point to note with MySQL that I can create multiple loop labels to navigate from one loop to another loop as well. So, here I am saying in loop label my loop begins, I am checking if counter is greater than 10, then I am leaving the loop label, I am coming out of the loop. I am setting counter equal to counter plus 1. After incrementing the counter, we will make use of mod function to check, that is if counter mod 2, then keep on iterating the loop, and else keep building it in the string. So, here I am saying string is concatenate string comma counter comma, the comma I have hard coded. So, my string like 2 comma 4 comma 6 comma 8 and 10 will be iterated into my string, and at the end if you observed, I have written select str. So, I call the loop here, and you can observe that my string 2 4 6 8 10 is displayed. So, a small look at the example actually. So, here this is how we wrote the test loop example. So, after procedures, we also have functions as the database objects. Now, when we talk of functions, and the functions unlike stored procedures might compulsorily return a value, but with reference to functions, functions can return only one value. Like in stored procedures, we saw that stored procedures can return multiple out parameters, stored procedures can return multiple out values. Similarly, functions cannot return multiple out parameters. Functions do not have out parameter. Function has just a return statement. It can have in parameters as multiple. So, function will accept any parameter only as the in parameter. The another difference between stored procedure and function would be, I can make use of functions as an expression. That is, I can write function as part of SQL statement, I can write function as part of select, I can write select employee number comma my function name from the table name. So, from there, from the select statement, it will go to the function call, unlike procedure where I am supposed to make the procedure call with the help of call statement only. So, we will see a simple look at a simple example of functions as well, but before that, any object which I have created, and if I want to view in my schema, one statement is show procedure status. Show procedure status will help you to see your objects, whatever the database it is using, the name of the procedure, the type, when was it created, what is the encoding scheme it is using, all the details about the procedure you can make, you can view with the help of show procedure status. So, let us now have a look at the example of function, and as I told you earlier, functions can have only in parameters and the return statement is compulsory in function. So, again the syntax of function is very much similar to syntax of procedure, the only difference being of the parameter. Parameter it will be only in parameter, the create function function name, and the return type which is compulsory with reference to function, other things remain same like procedure. So, going to the example. Here we have created, as you saw the block of procedure, here there is another block of function where you right click and you go for create function. The same example which we had taken into stored procedure of get salary, we are using with function create function get salary. Here whatever variable I am passing is by default the in parameter. So, employee number we are passing which returns integer. Here because I am supposed to return a value back to the function, from the function I am declaring one variable called v salary which will hold the salary from my table. So, select salary into v salary from table name where employee ID is the ID which I have passed. I am returning v salary and I apply. Again once you apply, it will add the delimiters, and now I go to the SQL prompt and I call my function, but before that I will have to hold the variable into a session variable. So, here I am making it as part of the SQL statement, select employee ID comma get salary into bracket of employee 1. So, employee 1 has the salary of 5,400. So, here the salary has been fetched, but fetched through the function. So, here I am making use of the function as part of SQL statement, as part of the expression, and also fetching other details along with the function. After we have seen the overview of functions, but the parameters, the loop constraints, the triggers, everything remains same along with the functions. One important point which could be noted over here is, it is not always compulsory to go into the editor to write the stored procedure or function, but we always keep that a practice because consistency is maintained, a separate code reusability becomes easier. Anybody else when tries to refer your procedure or function, it becomes much more easier to refer to your procedure or function. It is not that we cannot create the procedures or function from the command prompt, we can do that as well, but that will make your code look cluttered and it will not be always available. When you are creating a separate file, you are creating a permanent copy of that file into user objects which are stored as part of tables. So, you have your tables, you have your files as well as you have it resided into the memory. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.